I just feel like I've been around the block, ripping up fantasy stock, working around the clock. Look at the view from the top. Researching rookies a lot? No, I just be listening to pods, yeah. One in particular, I'm just a messenger, let me just pass on the rock. Browning, brunning, pruning, pronouncing ain't what he's doing. What he's doing is not losing, but infusing you with new things. And there's Dennis the Bennett, yeah. The man is a menace, yeah. Building a dynasty, some of the finest things. Promise you, you won't regret it. Sly as a fox, cultured in pop. Give him his props. Here is a thought, here is a box, and you cannot compare them at all. So don't even try. Careful with the news, but when you use a take, I take up Tony Fire. I mean Dyer, because anyone else is a huge mistake. Whoa, fantasy round table, fantasy round table, yeah. Fantasy round table. Come take a look at the crown, baby. Hey, fantasy round table, fantasy round table, woo. Fantasy round table. Come take a look at the crown, baby. Go.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Fantasy Football Roundtable Podcast. It is Super Bowl week. The big game is just a few days away. So we will be talking some Super Bowl props and diving into the game itself. But first, there is some news. All of the coaching carousel seats are probably filled. And that started with, Dennis, last time we were together, I asked you why no one wanted to coach in Cleveland. Turns out Todd Monken wants to coach in Cleveland, and Jim Schwartz also wanted to coach in Cleveland. And when Todd Monken got the job, Jim Schwartz told them to take a long walk off a short pier. What do you make of the developments in Cleveland?
So I don't hate the Monken hire based on what was really Cleveland's options. Cleveland was not going to get the new hotness. They just weren't. The team has been a shit show. Jimmy Haslam has shown himself to be a meddler. I think there are people who believe Andrew Berry has a short leash and, being hired as the next head coach there could lead you to having a new GM who will probably in short time want to bring in his own head coach unless you do superhuman things. And with their quarterback situation and this quarterback class, I don't think superhuman things are happening for the Cleveland Browns. I mean, don't get me wrong. They've got a good defense. Jim Schwartz was one of the architects of that this year. Unfortunately for him, he is stained by the specter of Detroit's 0-16 season and the general perspective that he lost the locker room there because he was just too loose and lenient. I think Schwartz, he may be one of those Peter Principle guys that, he's fantastic coordinator and just not a very good head coach. I don't know what it holds for Monken. His head coaching stint in college didn't last 2 contracts. He also has been a really good coordinator at the NFL level. We'll have to see what happens there. There was a love fest between him and Shador, and he basically said, we tried to draft you last year, we being Baltimore, but you and your dad basically said you wouldn't play for us because basically he'd been playing behind Lamar, and unless Lamar gets hurt, nobody's playing there. So there's still talk that Schwartz may, I don't think tuck his tail and come home is the right characterization, but sometimes you got to kind of look around and say, well, really, what are my options? And Myles Garrett is my number one guy with some of the other players that they have there with Carson Schwarzenegger, Denzel Ward, Grant, the new young DT. They have some players on defense. So maybe he goes back to Cleveland, has another really good year on the defense, and gets an opportunity in next year's head coaching cycle because let's face it, there'll be openings next year.
Yeah. I think he'll have no shortage of offers. I don't think Jim Schwartz will go back to Cleveland. And I think it's going to really suck for for Todd Monken because Myles Garrett requested a trade right away. So I mean, you're kind of stepping into basically a pretty brutal situation. But Cleveland was going to be a brutal situation anyway, since they still have Deshaun Watson and Pro Bowler Shedeur Sanders.
Yep.
Arizona filled its openings, hired Mike LaFleur to be their new head coach. He came out of the Sean McVay system. He had been working as offensive coordinator there. His brother, obviously, the head coach in Green Bay, and he moved to hire Nathaniel Hackett as his offensive coordinator. As somebody who has a fair amount of Trey McBride and Marvin Harrison shares, I was not super psyched by this news.
Yeah, so LaFleur is going to be interesting. He's said he's going to call plays, and if I hired Nathaniel Hackett, I'd call plays too, just to be clear.
Which is kind of sounds like what Nathaniel Hackett did in Green Bay for his brother Matt, who called plays, and he was the offensive coordinator.
Right.
Made that into ruining the Denver Broncos.
So, LaFleur's first OC stint was in New York under Robert Saleh. He was there for a couple years and then kind of was the fall guy after they didn't play very well, even though, I think it was the defense that struggled more so than the offense. And then Aaron Rodgers came in, brought Nathaniel Hackett with him to New York, I believe, if I remember correctly. But it was it just seemed like it got pinned on him. He's going to call his own plays. And I think after 3 years under McVay, he probably wants to, stake his claim to being an offensive genius out of the McVay-Shanahan tree. So I think the jury is out, mostly because that, a dozen or 15 other NFL teams, the Cardinals have quarterback questions. Yeah, they've got Marvin Harrison, they've got Trey McBride, they've got Michael Wilson, but they're going to need to figure out the quarterback situation. And we've not hit our disdain, may be a strong word for Kyler Murray, but we're not fans of him as it comes to being super
big
NFL quarterback.
The big discussion has been that they're going to move on from him this offseason, which begs the question, that's all well and
good. For what?
But what are you then doing, So, yeah, there's
Russell Wilson, come on down.
Be like that meme of the guy in the red plaid shirt holding up his new Christmas present of the red plaid shirt.
Yep.
Yeah, I we'll see how it goes, but Arizona, I don't know.
They got an aging James Conner coming off an injury.
Well, he's a free agent, so they'd have to decide whether to bring him back. Trey Benson is the real question, because last year would have been a great opportunity to see what you have in Trey Benson, but he got hurt at the same time, and we never saw it. And so now
we got to see
Trey Benson and Jonathan Brooks are like the missing man.
Michael Carter.
Yeah. So I liked what I saw from Michael Wilson, and maybe a new scheme and new coach helps Marvin Harrison. Trey McBride has been great. Obviously what would scare me is LaFleur was the offensive coordinator in the Jets for Robert Saleh and was not good and got canned. Right. And he was the offensive coordinator for the Rams, but Sean McVay is the one that runs that offense. So you might be having the blind leading the handy capable with him and Nathaniel Hackett there. And so we will see, some coaches that worked for McVay have come out and gone to other places and been good. Some
not so much.
So we shall see. The Raiders are rumored to have hired Clint Kubiak. Nothing can be official until after the Super Bowl because he is the offensive coordinator for Seattle. But we are all pretty well presuming, people who had been in the contention for the Raiders head coaching job are returning to their teams or taking a new coordinator position. So that seems to be a pretty well done deal. I thought that actually worked out the best it possibly could for the Raiders, given the circumstances. I thought Kubiak's offense that he ran in New Orleans for Dennis Allen in 2024 was really good. What he has done in Seattle with, we had a lot of questions about, whether they could make it work with Sam Darnold, how they would get everything going. And I think it's been very good. And obviously they went into the Super Bowl, not to jinx things. I think they're probably, going to win the Super Bowl. And I know a lot of people have thrown Tom Brady under the bus this week because he refused to pick the Patriots as his Super Bowl pick. But since he pretty well runs the Raiders and the guy on Seattle is probably about to be his head coach, I don't know why this is surprising to anyone.
A lot of these broadcasters that are also owners have to tread lightly. Why do we expect anything different? It's media. You're going to get a lot of non-answers, whatnot. And the fact that he is in the front office and part owner of the Raiders doesn't make it less complicated.
Did you like the hire, though? The potential?
Yeah, I think he was one of the hot coaches this cycle, and I think he did really good stuff. Now, am I going to like it if he decides he needs to use somebody in the Zach Charbonnet role when he's got Ashton Genty? No, that's not going to make me too happy. But, they've got Brock Bowers. They've got Ashton Genty. They need a number one wide receiver. They need some offensive line help. What's going to happen with Max Crosby? He wants to go out and he wants to contend, and they clearly. I don't know that they have the draft capital for a fast turnaround, so maybe it makes sense to move off of Max at what's he 30 years old now or something. So it'll be interesting to see from that perspective. And then,
but it felt like Crosby was really upset with how the last administration handled things. They're gone.
Yeah,
you would like to think there's room to build that back, but the Raiders probably are in a spot where they're going to have to turn things over anyway, so maybe they can get a haul for him.
Yeah, they've got their, I hate to say, obviously they're taking Fernando Mendoza, but it sure feels like they're taking.
Obviously, they are taking Fernando Mendoza.
Yeah,
I don't think that's a stretch.
If they don't, I think there'll be an awful lot of questions. Now, that being said, if somebody makes them a Godfather offer, will they take it to move out of number one? Because they're really, I don't think there's another. I don't know that there's another early starter coming in as a rookie this year. It just the class. A lot of people went back. I think there may be a couple guys that can develop into starters, but. It feels like their ceiling are the Matt Schaub type of quarterbacks for guys like Cade Klubnik or Carson Beck. I think that's the best you could hope for. We'll see what happens with Trinidad Chambliss. Somebody's going to fall in love with his athleticism. But he had kind of one of those Cam Ward journeys playing against lesser competition. So, Ty Simpson had a great opportunity to establish himself as a number two, and then essentially spent a few weeks crapping the bed at Alabama. But
yeah, I mean, they pretty much have to take the quarterback, I would think, at 101. And we'll see how things go. They aren't devoid of options. Geno is still tied to them. Gaden O'Connell still tied to them, so you can have some veteran options. So maybe they don't have to throw Mendoza out there right away, depending on how the rest of their team looks. But they do have a couple of weapons. I like Ashton Genty as a player and prospect as a pick, we saw some flashes of it, maybe with a little better coaching. I mean, we've seen the way he has deployed running backs in his other spots. That makes me feel better. Brock Bowers has been great. I mean, if we saw what he was able to do with AJ Barner, what's he going to be able to do with a healthy Brock Bowers? But they really have no receivers. I thought that was a problem last offseason, and they moved Jacoby Myers during the season, and so I didn't get any better. So, if I'm moving Max Crosby, maybe I'm trying to get a couple of young players in addition to picks.
Yeah.
Because their defense needs an overhaul. He's somebody who I think needs to try to find a good veteran defensive coordinator, kind of take on that side of the ball too, because I would imagine Kubiak's planning on calling plays and is going to have to give a lot of attention over to an offense and mentoring a quarterback. That will work best if you can find kind of that partnership. And that's where they're getting a little hamstrung, because he made it to the Super Bowl, which is wonderful, but that puts you behind during a savage season where there's been so many people on the move, and you're kind of not getting the prime choice, I would say. I'm going to be curious to see how that works. Speaking of not the prime choices available, the Jets moved late to make their decision on offense and defense. They have finally filled those roles. Brian Duker was hired as defensive coordinator, but Aaron Glenn says he is going to call the defensive play, something apparently he did not do last year, and they brought in Frank Reich as offensive coordinator. I thought the Reich move was decent. I don't really know how to feel about the defensive coordinator. I think this is more saying Aaron Glenn is going to take an active role there and maybe has found somebody he trusts more in Reich to just handle the other side of the ball. I don't think things can get much worse for the Jets, but they are another team that list of needs just continues to grow. They sold off their best players on defense. They don't have a quarterback. So I'm not sure any coaching decision was going to help, but what do you think of the hires?
I was not, well, I don't know who Brian Duker is really. So, that's clearly
outside of his family, he's probably not that well known.
That's clearly Aaron Glenn saying, I'm going to handle this side of it, so I need to bring in somebody that can be the head coach of the offense. And that's what he did, I think, with Frank Reich. That being said, they don't have a quarterback either. They've got some opportunities on the offense. They've got a couple offensive linemen. They could probably stand at least one more stud O lineman. Garrett Wilson will be coming back from injury. Mason Taylor flashed as a rookie at the tight end position. A.D. Mitchell, maybe if they bring back John Mechie, I stated in season, I thought that made a nice trio of complementary receivers to go with the running back. But Breece Hall's a free agent. Braylon Allen's coming off of an injury. Isaiah Davis, is it Davis? Has looked good, but he's a low draft capital guy, and so it's hard to tell for sure. Is he really good? And just his value was depressed because that's what happens to running backs now. Reich is going to have some work to do, especially at the quarterback position.
Yeah, I mean, the Jets need kind of an overhaul, but the good news is nowhere to go but up, right? So we'll see how they go. Another New York team also brought in a new offensive coordinator. Sounds like Matt Nagy wasn't anyone's top choice. I read one report that said he wasn't in the top 5 list of top 5 finalists for the New York Giants offensive coordinator job, which is why no one knew it was happening.
Right.
But he has been hired, didn't get any of the head coaching options. I have to say, I didn't think there was something more uninspiring than Harbaugh bringing Todd Monken with him. And John Harbaugh said, "Hold my beer." I weep for all my Giants shares. On paper, they have a potentially exciting group of young players, and this left me cold.
Yeah, it's a he wasn't innovative under Andy Reid. Andy Reid was the innovator. When he got a chance to be a head coach, we got to see exactly how uncreative he was. And so then he went back to Kansas City, and we got to see Andy Reid be the innovator again. That's what Andy Reid does. So I feel bad for Jackson Dart, Malik Neighbors, Cam Scatabo. It just feels like it's one of those things that's coming to fruition, that you're going to spend a couple seasons wasting some top talent.
Yeah, I mean, I liked the potential of the Giants opening the most when they were going into it. And that was before Buffalo came open, but I think the Giants had a lot of good young potential, and I was uninspired by their choice of head coach, and it continues to be a little bit baffling. But I guess we'll see how it goes. It's just Matt Nagy, when he went back to Kansas City, when you look at the years right prior to him coming back and the years right after, there was a precipitous drop in production for that offense for Patrick Mahomes, a guy that we had seen be the best quarterback in the league. And there has to be a pretty good reason that they unceremoniously, when his contract expired, were like, hey, thanks for being here. We know you're going to get a head coaching job. We're going to go ahead and replace you right now.
Yeah, we're gonna bring Eric back.
And so, well, that brings us to the Super Bowl. Before we talk specifics of the game, I thought I'd go over a couple of props and get a feel for how you're feeling about the game. First one, always a favorite, coin flip. Are you going heads or tails?
I mean, to be honest, it's a coin flip. In the Super Bowl era, tails has the edge 32-27. So, it is random as random can be. And I'm gonna go with heads. Why not? They got to make a comeback, right? That's the law of averages. Got to get back to 50-50. They're down 5.
Yeah, I'm going to go tails, I think. I went heads last year, and I feel like I've taken heads the last couple of years, and it hasn't panned out for me, which probably means you should be betting heads. I'm going to go with tails. The other one was the over-under 119 and a half seconds for the national anthem by Charlie Puth. I don't feel like he's the kind of guy that's going to like hold on to notes for a long time, so I'm going to take the under.
So, he's one of these perfect pitch guys. And so he is, to me, he's kind of smooth and maybe underrated. So the average length of the last 10 national anthems is 119 seconds. And the over-under is at 119.5. So Lady Gaga has the longest of the last 10 at 2 minutes and 22 seconds, or what would that be, 142 seconds? And that was 10 years ago. The shortest in the last 10 years was Reba McEntire at 1:40, or what's that, 100 even, just a couple years ago. The most common range is that 145 to 205. I think that, Charlie Puth, while being a perfect pitch guy, fantastic musician, can hit all of the notes. He's not a guy that does a lot of real far out runs when he's singing and stuff. So I am going to take the under as well.
What will be the first score? Always a variety in this prop. I'm going with field goal. I think with two pretty strong defenses, I don't think it's going to be an early touchdown.
So field goals, touchdowns have split the last 4. It's 2-2. But field goal has been the first score in 8 out of the last 10. And I agree with you. This is a game with two very, very good defenses. I'm going to say it now for the first time, and I'll probably say it frequently throughout our Gab Fest here. This is a matchup of two very, very good teams, and Seattle has just a slight edge in just about every phase of the game. Not a big edge, 1 yard per game here or, a little bit of something there. It's not, these are two pretty well matched teams. And I agree with you. I think that with two good defenses coming out, I'm not expecting, now that being said, New England kicking off to Seattle, I probably feel more strongly that Rashid Shaheed could return one for a touchdown over whoever's returning for New England. But that being said, we're not really picking who's winning the toss yet, and so I am gonna go with field goal as well.
Yeah, and then the next prop was who is the person that gets the first score. Well, I picked field goal. I think it's going to be Josh Myers, who is, I think, Seattle strikes first.
So Myers has hit 41 out of 48 field goals this year, with 5 of his 7 misses being over 40 yards, versus Andre Borregales has hit 27 of 32 with 4 of his 5 misses being over 40 yards. So how good a drive is a team going to have to get that field goal? So I think that whoever receives the kickoff is going to have the shorter distance to drive to get into field goal range. They get it if it goes into the end zone. Well, they got it if it goes into the end zone, they get it at the 35, right? Something crazy with these new rules.
Yeah, I think it has to hit in the landing zone first, right?
Right.
If it goes straight into the end zone, don't you only get it at the 20?
Is it still at the 20?
Or maybe if it hits in the landing zone and goes straight in, the kick has become so confusing.
So my thought is that whoever receives the opening kickoff is probably going to start their possession between the 20 and 30. And if they don't score, then they're going to be punting, and they have a stronger likelihood for the team receiving the punt to have to start inside the 20. So that being said, I think both kickers have a little bit of leg to them. Myers has had 16 more field goal attempts this year. I'm going to go with Jason Myers as well.
Yeah, we'll see how they sort out. Next are some of the player total props. Seattle's goes first. I believe they're the designated road team here. Sam Darnold over under 250 yards in the NFC Championship game. He actually went for 346 yards and 3 touchdowns. Was a pretty massive output. Obviously didn't have a huge game in the divisional round, but that's probably owing to the fact that they were destroying the 49ers. So it's hard to take a lot away from that. But 250 yards is a pretty decent clip. I am going to say just under. I feel more comfortable with him in like the 235 to 245 range.
So Darnold has went over 250 yards in 8 of 17 regular season games. So it's right about 50%. Though I think in the playoffs, I think he's 1 for 2. So
going for 250. He didn't throw very much though against San Francisco. That's not, they scored that kickoff touchdown and by halftime it was like 28-0. I think he only completed 12 passes, only threw 16 times.
Yeah.
It's hard to really take away what that means. Even though, I'm leaning towards Seattle, I would be surprised if it was like a 41-7 game, like what we saw.
No, I'm gonna take the over. I think he's gonna have to throw a little bit. I think with Rashid Shaheed and JSN, he's got some guys that can make big plays, and Kenneth Walker can make some plays in the running game or in the passing game at the running back position as well with his speed. So I think I'm going to take the over.
The next one is Sam Darnold over or under 1 interception. He had none in the NFC Championship game, but he did lead the NFL in interceptions, which is an interesting stat considering their record and everything. I am going to say this is a push. I think he throws 1, but no more.
So Darnold he's only been over 1 in 3 games. Now he's thrown 1 a lot, but also New England only has about half as many interceptions as Seattle. Seattle has 18 to New England's 10. It's easy to, when we talk about Sam Darnold, what's the first thing that comes to mind?
Turnovers.
I'm seeing ghosts, turnovers. Exactly. But at some point, we got to accept the fact he had the Vikings at 14-3 last year, and he's taken the Seahawks with their 14-3 record to the Super Bowl this year. Dude might not be bad. So that being said, I'm going to take, let's see, what is it? Is it over under 1 or 1.5?
It should be 1.5.
So because 1.5, I'm gonna take the under.
Yeah, I think I can see him having 1. I didn't think any more than that. Over under 73.5 yards for Ken Walker. He had a good game in the NFC Championship game, but only ended up with 62 yards on 19 carries there. Did have 116 against the 49ers thanks to some big breakaways. But I think this comes up in part because the Patriots defense has been really hard on the ground. And so I'm going to take the slight under.
So Walker has hit over 73.5 yards in 3 of his last 5 games. In all 3 of those games, Charbonnet was active. Charbonnet played. So at some point, we're going to look at it and say, well, without Charbonnet, what is he doing? Well, he went out and he scored touchdowns, but didn't have a ton of yards without Charbonnet. The Patriots give up the 6th fewest rushing yards during the regular season at just 101 yards per game. So the rest of the Seattle backfield is George Holani, and who's the other guy?
The only backs that they used in the championship game were Walker and Holani. They did some running with Shaheed.
So it feels like Walker is going to get the opportunity. 73.5 is a pretty good size number. I'm going to go with the under as well, in part because it plays into my overall pick.
Next one is Jackson Smith-Njigba over under 100 yards and over under 6.5 receptions. I'm taking the over on both.
So he's been over in 5 of his last 7 games, but just 1 out of the last 3. Yardage wise, he's only been over 100. He's been over 100 in just 2 of his last 8 games and 1 of his last 5. I could see, they, with the addition of Shaheed and Cooper Kupp, 100 feels like the guy that led the league in yardage. It feels like it should be a no-brainer. But when you kind of look at some of this stuff, it's a little bit iffy. I'm going to say yes because I picked Darnold to go over 250, and somebody's got to catch those yards.
Going over to the Patriots, Drake May over under 250 yards. I'm taking the under.
Yeah, he averaged 258 yards a game this season. He's only been over the 250 once in the playoffs. Seattle's defense gives up 193 yards per game through the air. While Seattle's defense doesn't give up a ton of rushing yards to quarterbacks either, I do think May will have to play a really, really smart game. So I'm taking the under.
And then for him, it was over under at 1.5 interceptions. I'm also taking the under. He had turnovers. He threw an interception in each of the first 2 playoff games and fumbled. He was clean in the AFC title game. I can see him throwing an interception. I think it'd be a total meltdown if it was more than one.
Yeah, he only threw 8 interceptions all year, and he didn't have he never threw more than 1 interception in a game. So I'm gonna. Now, that being said, Seattle, I think, had the best passing defense. They had 18 interceptions. Well, not leading the league in interceptions. That was one of the better numbers. I'm going to take the under as well.
Next was over under 49.5 yards for Ramondre Stevenson. He figures to be the lead back, but that doesn't guarantee a lot. He had 71 yards against the Broncos, but it took 25 carries to get there. I'm going to take the slight over because it's not an impressive number, but I don't know that he's going to have a huge day either.
Yeah, he's been over that number the last 4 games. And they clearly trust him more than TreVeyon Henderson right now, both passing game and running game. He does not have anywhere near the explosiveness of TreVeyon Henderson, and I think Henderson will get plenty of opportunity. But Stevenson's a good running back. He's one of those guys where he might not be a superstar, but he's not a jag either. He's a very good back. I think getting hurt this year was a tough break for him. I think he'd have probably had 1,000-yard season. Vrabel values him as a veteran, and I think he gets his opportunity. I think he goes over 50.
The next up is over under 35 yards for your boy, Kayshon Boutte. I think that really is basically, do we think he gets a long one or not? Because that's really seems to be his role. And I'm going to say under.
Yeah, he's only surpassed 35 yards in 3 of the last 9 games. That's one of those bets where if you're making that bet, you're playing it because you're like, it's 35 yards. He could do it in one play. It's got great odds. So if it hits, it's going to pay off. But yeah, I'm going under.
Yeah, it just feels like with Mac Hollins back that he's more likely the guy they're going to take a shot to. Not that they can't take a shot or wouldn't take a shot to Bude, but I feel like he's going to get some better coverage. Next one is their best receiver, Diggs, over under 5 receptions in the AFC Championship game. He was right at 5, but only for 17 yards.
So he's only been over 5 in 2 of the last 9 games. So I'm hesitant to. That's what it would be very easy for him to go over. It's a big game. He's going to want to perform. He's going to feel like his reputation is why he should get the targets. I feel like he's going to get plenty of targets. Whether or not he converts them is going to be another story. I'd love to take the push, but I'm going to go over.
I've really been thinking about this. I'm going to take the under. I think they're going to take away these. I just don't think it's going to be the 2 primary receivers that do much. I do like the next one, which is over under 50 yards for Hunter Henry. I feel like that is a place where they're going to try to attack, and I'm going to take the slight over there.
So he's second on the team in targets, receptions, and receiving yards. He averages 45 yards a game. The fly in the ointment here is Austin Hooper. And, every now and again they get down there and you're like, oh, it's perfect Hunter Henry territory. And they slip Austin Hooper in. Seattle gives up the 6th most receiving yards to tight ends at 63.5. I feel like this is one of those games where if New England wants to win it, they're going to need a big game from Hunter Henry. I'm taking the over.
Next, we have a couple of just kind of game props. One is, will Cardi B appear at halftime? This has been rumored because she has done some things with Bad Bunny and because obviously she is engaged to Stephon Diggs. She's also, she either just gave birth or she's super pregnant. I'm going to say no. I feel like this is the red herring, like when everybody thought Taylor Swift was going to pop up last year. So I'm going to say no.
Yeah, I like when you say appear at halftime, you mean in the show?
Yeah, as part of the halftime show.
Yeah, I feel like she's going to be there, but
yeah, this is being part of the halftime show. I'm sure they're going to show her. I mean, that
right.
This was a prop last year if Taylor Swift was going to pop up at halftime, and I always thought that felt like a long shot, and I think this is more hype that's not going to happen too.
Yeah, when I saw you put that on there, I kept thinking, oh, but she's all about Trump, all about. I was confusing her with Nicki Minaj, so.
It's like, not probably our preferred musical genre. Not that either of us is, like a huge music expert.
So, it feels like there's always there's often a surprise guest, and who better than Stephon Diggs' girlfriend?
Well, I mean, he has collaborated with her, but the whole thing that it seems like he was going for is to kind of lift up Latin culture, in which case he has collaborators like, I'm not as familiar, but I'm reading like some of the list of people he has collaborated with, and several of them look like they would be more likely to be in that vein than Cardi B. I've never heard Cardi B sing anything in Spanish, so I
think she's more like Caribbean island.
no
Is her-
no she's more of a rapper.
Right. But I think where she's from though is like from the Caribbean islands, as opposed to like I think she grew up in New York, but
yeah, I don't know. This just feels decidedly out of my wheelhouse. I just feel like it's too much of a stunt. So I'm still
I'm gonna say yes because you said no.
What will this first score after halftime be? I'm going with the touchdown.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think they're gonna when you get to halftime. I think there'll be. I feel like there will be 15 to 20 points scored in the first half, and so whoever comes out at halftime is going to feel like they need to score a touchdown. So we may see a fourth down conversion attempt, things like that, to try to get in the end zone. I'm with you.
Will there be a defensive score in the game? Now, if we would have said special teams, I might have leaned yes, but I'm going to say no to defensive score. I think these are two good defenses that could get turnovers, but I don't think either of them is going to put one in the end zone.
All right. Well, let's see here. Looking. All right. The Patriots were 29th in defensive touchdowns, and the Seahawks were 31 in defensive touchdowns. So that being said, and wait, no, that's rushing touchdowns given up. That's not what I was looking for. Well, shoot, I was looking for what defenses scored touchdowns.
Well, and I was doing a quick check. I don't. Neither of them had a defensive touchdown in the playoffs. Seattle's had some special teams ones, and with Rashid Shaheed, I wouldn't be shocked to see him do one. But I just don't. I think these are two good defenses. But I guess the Patriots did have a defensive touchdown against they had an interception return for a touchdown against the Texans.
Yeah, I'm going to go no as well.
Will there be overtime? I am saying no. Yeah, I think this. What color will the Gatorade shower be?
Purple.
I'm going yellow green. And who is your pick for Super Bowl MVP?
So my pick is going to telegraph my
they're both
pick for the game. So I'm going with Drake May. I'm picking the Patriots to win it. I picked them preseason, and they're the one. I picked the Bears and Patriots. I don't know what I was thinking, but the Patriots are here, and so I'm going to stick with my pick. But like I said earlier, the Seahawks have a slight edge in just about everything: rush defense, pass defense, rush offense, pass offense, fewer turnovers on offense. The Seahawks have just a little bit of an edge. And so I feel like I should pick the Seahawks, but I'm going to take the Patriots. And if the Patriots are going to win, Drake May is going to stack on the Super Bowl MVP with his NFL MVP.
Do you think he's going to win MVP tonight then?
Yeah.
Yeah, because the NFL honors is a little bit later tonight. We'll see. I don't think he's going to win either. I am going with Sam Darnold. I almost went with JSN, but I think Sam Darnold has been such a good story. I think the Seahawks are going to win. I think they're a more complete team, and that they will. The Patriots offense was not good in the AFC Championship game, and it was not good even before the weather. It was not particularly good against Houston or uh, against the Chargers either. Seattle's offense has been incredible, and that defense is very opportunistic. I would not be surprised to see them win by double digits. That
So
is my
just so
opinion.
we're clear, I am crafting the narrative and the picks and all of this to fit my preseason pick. I will not be the least bit surprised when you're right.
I mean, I'm just hoping it's a good game. I'm hoping there's some fun commercials, some stuff for us to talk about. We'll probably talk about NFL honors and the Super Bowl and whatever the hell happens with the Hall of Fame, because they're going to announce that tonight. But so far, it's been more about the people that seem to have gotten the Heisman from the committee than anything else. So there'll be a lot of fun things to talk about when we're back on Tuesday. I just think Seattle. I was pretty impressed by what they did to the 49ers, but then to follow it up with Sam Darnold played a near flawless game and was able to more than match the Rams score for score, which was impressive. And, it's been impressive. I know a lot of people have given the Patriots grief for maybe not having the toughest regular season schedule. You play who's in front of you. They took all comers. They hung on through all the playoff games. They don't dictate who they get to play or the injuries that happen to teams before they get to play them. I think it's been a good story. Mike Vrabel probably will and should win Coach of the Year for taking a team that was literally in the toilet for the last couple of years and making them a 14-win team. I just think at some point in time the magic runs out, and we could certainly see Sam Darnold melt down and turn back into a pumpkin. We saw that in the playoffs last year, but he feels different. This team feels different, and I think Seattle is going to win. I don't think it's going to be a crazy high scoring game though.
I think the offenses are good. The defenses are good. I would give the edge probably to both defenses over their offenses. I think Drake May is going to have to keep it clean, not turn the ball over. Seattle did have the 5th most interceptions, and they give up the 5th most receptions to running backs. So we've seen both Travion Henderson and Ramondre Stevenson have explosive plays in the running or passing game. We've seen Kayshon Boutte do it. We've seen Stephon Diggs do it. So that opportunity is there. The smart money is on the Seahawks because, like I said, they're just a little bit better in almost every phase of the game. I'm just being stubborn.
It's been a weird and a crazy season. And once you get to the Super Bowl, everybody has a chance. There is definitely ways in which you could see it go for New England, and we'll see how it goes. Part of me wonders too, how is Drake May's shoulder? That was something that bubbled up, and that's something you won't know until you see him throw the ball. And I'll be curious to see how it goes. I'm just hoping it's a good game. It's been a fairly fantastic playoffs and end of the season. And, it was not great for me as a Broncos fan seeing how things went, but you've had some really good and competitive games. I hope we continue that into the Super Bowl. I think we've only had one in all the playoff games, only one real big blowout, and that was that San Francisco-Seattle game that was a little unexpected. We've had some incredible finishes, and I'm excited to see more and to hold on to every second of competitive football we have until it disappears from our lives until next September. So you excited for the game?
I am.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm excited to see the summer movie trailers too. Maybe it'll bring some warmth to your heart, because I know you're not getting warm from the air out there.
No, I am not.
That'll do it for us today. We'll be back on Tuesday talking about the Super Bowl, NFL honors, the Hall of Fame slate, and who knows what else is going to pop up. It's the NFL. They keep you guessing. But until then, Dennis, if people have a little free time this weekend and it's too cold to go stand in their front yard, what can they do?
Well, up here it's definitely too cold. So do what I do. Head on over to your favorite podcast platform, hit that search button, type in the Fantasy Football Roundtable Podcast. Give us a subscribe, give us a like.
We appreciate it. We'll see you guys on Tuesday. Enjoy the Super Bowl.